morning, and thank you so much for joining us on this Wednesday. We've got a fair people joining us this morning, so just while we wait a couple of minutes for everyone to join us, feel free to pop in the chat function, just introduce yourself, say hello. Obviously, if we were face to face, you'd be able to network, meet new people, chat, so don't miss out. Pop in the chat function, tell us a bit about yourself, your business, maybe tell us what you've got planned for this weekend. I know it's limited, but if anyone's got any creative ideas of what they're up to, I'm sure we'd all like to know, rather than just going for a walk, doing the gardening, baking. I think cricket is allowed, or outdoor sports are allowed in the next few weeks, which I'm sure so many people are looking forward to. So yeah, just feel free. We're just going to give it another minute or so before we start off. So yeah, feel free, pop in the chat function. Make sure that when you pop in the chat function, send it to all panelists and all attendees, just so everyone can see it and no one feels like they are missing out. So yeah, just while we wait, feel free to say hello, introduce yourself. Yeah, Brian Bush has just put, don't make Kayleen laugh. Correct, trying to present. Although following that, I'm going to see, Brian, what did you do last weekend?
I saved some children from a stream.
Did you really?
No, but it sounded really good, didn't it? I probably
Were the police notified, Brian?
Yeah, that's my other name. That's the other spelling of my name, Alistair. I can't remember. This weekend just gone, I watched a film. I took the dog for a walk. I need to make this slightly more rock and roll. I feel like I'm really failing at a purposefulness in my life whatsoever at the weekend. Spent a lot of time with my gorgeous children, my lovely offspring. We've deduced that Steve the statue can't have any this morning. I'll leave Dan to cover that in his talk. And yeah, just had a really good time. Probably read some chamber articles on Norfolk Knowledge, the Knowledge Hub, and watched some videos on there, I would guess. Probably renewed my membership to ensure I'm ahead of the game and it doesn't lapse.
Thanks, Brian, for that perfect pitch. I don't dare ask Dan or Alistair or James, because I think we'll be here for a while and we won't get the event started, which is why you're all here. So thank you so much. I'm going to do a quick introduction, run through how the format of this session is going to go. So thank you so much for joining us on our next recovery program event. This series has been designed to support businesses to restart, rebuild and renew. I'm sad to say that this week is the last week that we'll be running the recovery program, so make sure you don't miss out. So, Online Entrepreneurs Seminar looks at how you can grow your business online, how you can sell to an online consumer, what challenges and legal risks are there in an online environment, and how you can build brand awareness on a small budget so that your business is visible in a noisy digital space. So in this 90-minute webinar, we've got Alistair Ponder, Company Commercial Solicitor for Steele's Law Solicitors, Brian Bush, Business Growth Specialist for B Bush Online, and Dan Bradfield, Creative Director, and James Hell, Head of Digital and Marketing from Naked Marketing, with us this morning. They'll be covering how you can define your brand and focus your marketing to deliver results on a smaller budget, the importance of sales in business, and awareness of some of the legal developments and challenges for online businesses. So they're each going to take turns to present, and then there'll be a live Q&A afterwards where each presenter will answer your questions. Please make sure, if you have any questions, to use the Q&A function. The chat function is for any comments or links you want to include. However, if you do put any questions in there, don't worry, I will pick those up. So it's going to be interesting. We'll see how this goes. Alistair, would you like to pull up your presentation? We're also asking the other guest speakers, you're welcome to turn your cameras off if you want. So for those of you who aren't aware, Alistair isn't the most tech savvy, hence why we were going to see, but he's done it. So Alistair, over to you.
Sorry, Colleen, I'm outraged by that suggestion. I'm the most tech savvy person I know, I think. I don't know many people. Anyway, good morning, everyone. This is my lockdown legal update, a riveting legal update, which I'm sure you're all extremely excited about. I've been pretending to be a solicitor for about the last 20 years. So far, I've managed to get away with it and no one's found me out. But in that time, I guess I've picked up a few tips along the way, and I now typically act for businesses across a range of sectors. So the lockdown legal update today is focused upon the slides not working. So that's a good start. Just bear with me. Yeah, nothing. Right. Okay. Sorry. Business challenges during lockdown. Basically, what we've seen during lockdown is that, unsurprisingly, online sales for businesses across a range of sectors since the beginning of lockdown have increased quite considerably. And I spent hours last night putting this chart together. No, I actually got it off the internet. But what I think this chart is saying in a nutshell is that across most, if not all sectors, there's been growth in online sales. That has been, I think, in a lot of instances to the detriment of offline sales. Obviously, the retail market has had a huge number of challenges, with shops being shut for a large part of the last year, by way of example. But as I said, online sales across a range of sectors have increased substantially. And this has in turn, of course, led to businesses having to adapt their practices in order to meet demand and service the markets that they're supplying, using different strategies to maintain customer service levels and preserve profit margins. That all sounds very grand. In a nutshell, we've seen that the businesses that have really thrived during lockdown have refined their online offering and certainly, sought to really exploit that channel to the greatest extent possible. What that has led to is something that we certainly, prior to the first lockdown, hadn't seen a lot of. We refer to it as the Amazon and eBay conundrum. So we know that businesses, particularly within the FMCG, so that's fast-moving consumer group sector, will sell through a variety of different channels. But given, as I've said, that online sales have been increasing across the board, it naturally follows that successful businesses will be looking to maximize their exposure across a range of different online platforms, which is what takes us to the predominantly two kind of market leaders in that space, obviously Amazon and eBay. And we've got a picture there of our friend Jeff Bezos, who I think, if I remember rightly, sailed off into the sunset a few weeks ago with a few billion quid in his pocket. But certainly, if we take Amazon first and foremost, that's become, well, it's been a market leader for quite some time, of course, but its continued growth and exposure during the lockdown periods of COVID-19 have seen its growth continue to explode exponentially. And naturally, we've got a lot of clients who sell in, as I said, across a range of different product sectors that have to interact with Amazon in different ways. And there's some statistics that I don't propose to talk to in any further detail at the bottom of the slide about just how many new sellers have joined Amazon and how many new buyers have come into eBay in the last 12 months or so. So this is an issue, or this is a marketplace that continues to grow and grow and grow. And I think personally, having read what a lot of commentators have been saying, this is probably an irreversible trend, such that even when we do hopefully finally come fully out of lockdown and the high street reopens, it's still the case, we suspect, that in a lot of instances the shift towards online selling, as I said, isn't going to slow down, and so that naturally drives a lot of businesses' strategies and focuses going forward. But there is a downside, and there can be a downside and a real challenge for certain business owners, brand owner clients, who we have found, become concerned about distributors to whom they supply, potentially undermining or compromising the credibility and reputation of their brands by essentially selling cheap, as we would say, on Amazon and eBay. That mentality, certainly, that has worked extremely well for Amazon, you know, of kind of stack it high, sell it cheap. Amazon, the whole model of the Amazon platform is driven by price. And that is absolutely effective and wholly, you know, the most appropriate solution for lots of product sales, again, across a range of different sectors. But in certain instances, and it generates, you know, on a very simple level, you know, competition for price, which most people would argue is a very healthy thing, but it has come at a cost to those brand owning businesses that have invested a lot of money, time, effort, and energy on some of their brands. And what we've found is that a number of new, different legal commercial challenges have been presented to us by clients in the last 12 to 18 months. And it's come in, or these queries have come in great number in a way that we've not seen previously. So the types of questions that we've come across and we've been grappling to assist clients in answering will typically be, can I stop my distributor customers from selling or reselling on Amazon or eBay full stop? Can I control the price at which my brand products are sold or resold? And I should just say, you know, strictly speaking, price control or any kind of price fixing in competition law is a absolute no-no. So, but nonetheless, we'll still, you know, there's a real element of price in this, which we'll come on to. But we'll be asked that start question, or we have been asked that start question quite a lot recently. Are there any other requirements that I can seek to require my trade customers to conform to, if not just price? And then those that have already heard about what a selective distribution system or network looks like, and that's what I'm going to come on to talk to in a second, will be asking us about that, how far they can reach and what they involve. And just to talk again about the impact and the power of the internet, most of these queries that I've just talked to, real-time client queries, and I'll talk to a couple in more detail in a second, have come to us via the internet. You won't be surprised to hear. So they're website queries. We've posted quite a lot of information both on our website and on other platforms about these types of issues. I mean, the key words that typically people searching for legal advice will be Amazon and eBay, interestingly. So we've obviously, our marketeers here have worked hard to get those key words tagged in the appropriate way. But what's been most interesting for us is that has meant that we've had clients coming to us that, dare I say, this wouldn't necessarily be your average or typical client for a Norfolk-based law firm, albeit with London offices in London, but a Norfolk-based law firm. We've had exposure to and access to clients who've come to us, you know, from all over the shop, based predominantly, and as I said, some of the information that we've been using. And if I take one example, which I think is hopefully quite an interesting case study, we had a client who approached us last year, quite an interesting business that is in the pet care product market. So, and in fact, prior to coming to us and prior to the first lockdown, they had been an entrant on the Dragon's Den. So they very cleverly, although they didn't get an investment on the Dragon's Den, they did nonetheless get really good feedback from all the dragons, very positive feedback. I think the essence of why they didn't get an investment, interestingly at the time, was that the dragons had a concern that the size of the market, pet care products, wasn't necessarily big enough to justify an investment and a significant new entrant, such as they were at the time. And I think they were also concerned that the market as it was also probably fairly well serviced, if not saturated, at the time. So notwithstanding positive feedback, no investment, but very sensibly the client nonetheless leveraged the exposure and the publicity they'd gotten from their Dragon's Den campaign. And then when the first lockdown hit, interestingly, and I personally have only found sort of more out about this recently, but one thing that it seemed that people up and down the country were doing was thinking, right, well, we need to get a pet, something to do. It's a good time to be at home with the children, whatever, homeschooling. Let's throw a puppy into the mix, for example. So pet sales, or the prominence of people getting pets, absolutely exploded. And on the back of this, the need for these pet care products also increased exponentially. So I think year on year, this client's sales have increased by over 300%. And they put that down firstly to the publicity that they got from their exposure on the Dragon's Den, and subsequently a market shift driven by lockdown, such that they've literally been struggling to keep up with demand, frankly. And in terms of the production of their products, and this is what's important when you think about brand, they've invested in a patented product with a whole load of branding and marketing spend behind that, and they're now reaping the benefits. But they don't just sell into the end consumer market, they sell into the trade market as well. They sell to a number of distributors. And one of the challenges that they had found was, based on all of this investment in their brand, they're pretty keen that there's a kind of not just an RRP for the products, but that the products weren't ever sold below a certain amount. This is what this is really all about. Can I control price? Well, the law, competition law says no, technically you certainly can't outwardly do it, but is there anything else we can do in the background that might have a similar effect? And one of the challenges with Amazon is very driven by price. So the client came to us and said, we've got distributors who are reselling our products on Amazon at a price which is less than that which we're trying to sell ourselves, and it's a price that we're not comfortable with because we feel as though it's devaluing and undermining the investment that we've made in our brand. And that's what kind of led us to talk to them about selective distribution systems. And this is something that, on the back of what I've just described, we're seeing more and more of. So just give you a kind of outline, selective distribution arrangement will typically be used by a supplier to maintain greater control over the resale of its products. You can't just say price, but in reality, our experience, based on the several approaches we've had from different clients, will be that they are concerned about resellers often, and you don't know the personal circumstances of a distributor reseller a lot of the time, but take, for example, they may have cash flow problems and they've got a load of stock and just need to get some cash in. So Amazon Marketplace is a really good place to, again, to use the analogy, stack them high, sell them cheap. People will be driven a lot of the time on Amazon by the best price. So that's, as I said, one of the challenges that's been created, and a selective distribution system seeks to an extent, manage against that. I think, as you can see, the slide talks to the fact that in such a system, the supplier or the brand owner, the manufacturer, will agree to supply only to those distributors who meet certain minimum criteria, and the distributors in return agree to supply only to other distributors within, often there's a supply chain, which hopefully, again, that sort of graphic talks to, at least to an extent. So they will only supply to other distributors who are also within the approved network or system, or to end users, who are essentially the end customers who are going to consume the product. And the selection criteria of such a model typically requires that the products are sold only through channels or outlets that convey a particular image, and that's backed again to the value in the brand, or that the distributor undertakes specific obligations in respect of, such as staff training or after sales. And that's something that Amazon and eBay can't, and in fact don't want to do. So selective distribution systems most often used by suppliers of products in one of two categories, those categories being either for complex or technical consumer products, so something where there is a need for some after sales care or explanation around the sale, or to what I've just been talking about, the kind of perceived luxury or high brand value products. So it's not going to work for everything. If you're just, dare I say it, selling widgets, then it's pretty unlikely you're going to be able to argue that a widget merits a selective distribution protection, which is, again, what I'm going to talk to in a bit more detail in a second, because it's probably not going to be complex or technical enough or have sufficient high brand value behind it to justify it. Just on the complex and technical side, another example, again, real-time example of a client who came in to us, again, a true multinational business, has a UK base, but also bases all around the world. And again, on the back of an article that they found on the front page on page 1 of Google that we posted about challenges around distributors selling products on Amazon and eBay. They came into us, and it was again a fascinating interaction with a client that we're now doing quite a lot of work with. That, truth be told, had we not had that article and they hadn't found us on the page 1 of Google, we would very unlikely have ever had it, come into contact with. They did share with us that previously they've been through a number of different law firms, London-based law firms, paying extortionate rates, and they'd come across our article and thought that it was kind of written in plain English, no nonsense style, and that's been a really good client win for us. So again, I come back to the point: the power of the internet, as we all know, is endless now. They have a not only a high value brand product, but one which is quite, I've discovered, technical. And they're in the high end kitchenware space, so they sell basically expensive things for the kitchen, whether it be toasters, kettles, and particularly coffee makers, which I know nothing about, still don't really. But again, I've been fascinated to work with them to understand. I had no idea that you could spend, it seems, thousands of pounds on domestic use coffee makers, obviously for young, trendy millennials, I guess. But again, a huge amount of investment in their products, and they were very sensitive about distributors trying to sell these products at a so-called knockdown price on Amazon. So again, what can be done about that? There are limitations as to what selective distribution agreements can do. Typically, they must have no element of territorial exclusivity. So you can't just say you can sell here, but you can't say that sell there. Characterized instead by a restriction on the resale of contract goods to third-party resellers who are not themselves party to the network. And therefore, the supplier in practice can limit resale to end users, consumers, and a selective group of distributors who satisfy a set of objective criteria. And now just kind of bringing it across into what I call the legal stuff. Why is all this relevant? Well, there's regulations, there are EU regulations called Weber, Vertical Agreement Block Exemption Regulations, which form part of TFEU, that's the Treaty for the European Union. And for the record, this has all been brought across under the Withdrawal Act, so it still applies in English law today. Now, Weber contains a list of what they call serious or hardcore restrictions of competition, which, if included, will remove the benefits of an exemption to competition law from any agreement. So we're talking about an agreement between a brand-owning manufacturer, supplier, and any one of its distributors or resellers. And the hardcore restrictions that will give anyone a problem, whether in what's called a selective distribution agreement or otherwise, will be any ones which touch resale price maintenance. So in other words, restrict the distributor's freedom to determine retail price. So just again, to put that more bluntly, you can't say to one of your resellers, you've got to charge this price. That will immediately be anti-competitive and in breach of relevant legislation. I've already talked to the fact that you also can't impose under Weber territorial or specific customer restrictions, and neither under Weber as a general rule are you supposed to place any restrictions on any kind of online sales, be they active or passive. So the starting point for Weber doesn't look very good for a client who comes to us and says, we've got distributors who are selling on Amazon, we want to stop them, what can we do? However, there has been more recent guidance and interpretation of Weber and the relevant provisions within TFEU, and specifically subsequent case law, which has been quite helpful and is confirmed that the prohibition on anti-competitive agreements will generally not apply to a selective distribution arrangement where 4 conditions are satisfied. So those 4 conditions which are stipulated are that the nature of the goods, so again, that would be either high brand value or technical in their nature, means that such a system is a legitimate requirement. Furthermore, that the people within the network are selected solely on the basis of a non-discriminatory qualitative, not quantitative set of criteria. So in other words, if you meet all the criteria as a distributor, you can't be locked out just because they've got 10 already. So it's not about numbers, it's about qualitative criteria. Typically, the criteria that the brand owner will expect to see the distributor meeting will be around an ability to understand the product and sell it in an appropriate way. And that is where, again, to make the point, it is argued that Amazon just doesn't have that functionality. It doesn't want to have, it doesn't need to have that sort of functionality where it's offering after sales service, or where the brand can be positioned in a certain way so that it is not associated with lower value brands, or is not perceived as being driven by price and price alone. So those qualitative criteria are very necessary to have a legally effective selective distribution arrangement. They're not supposed to go what is perceived or believed as being beyond necessary. And then there's another criteria which is quite specific about risks around price competition. But in essence, the main point here is that clients are trying to find a way, without price fixing, which they can't do, to say to their distributors, you can't sell or resell on Amazon, even though actually the real motivation most of the time for that is about price, because in doing so, you're going to be potentially compromising my brand value, or Amazon isn't going to be able to fulfill the technical aftercare sales requirements of a product in the same way that selling on another website, whether it's the distributor's own site or the manufacturer's own site, might be able to do. So that's kind of where we found ourselves. And there's a case, a very helpful case called Coty, which was reported a couple of years back now, but it's still good law, which confirmed that a clause in a selective distribution agreement, so that's what we've been doing for clients, we've been drawing up selective distribution terms, which they then take to their distributors and say, these are our new terms of business, you've got to play by these rules. And interestingly, there does need to be quite a bit of padding, so often the new terms will run to a number of pages. But if I'm being completely honest, the absolutely killer clause that the clients are really interested in, which is, you know, true lawyer style, often sort of hidden away in the middle somewhere, is the one that says you cannot resell on Amazon or eBay, or it will usually be referred to as a third-party platform. But the case of Coty said that a clause which prohibits authorized distributors within a selective distribution agreement from using third-party platforms, so that's Amazon and eBay, for internet sales, can be compatible with Weber, provided certain criteria are met. And again, it's kind of repeating the point about it has to have the objective of preserving the premium brand image or the technical nature of the product in question, applied uniformly and not in a discriminatory manner, and proportionate to the overall sort of offering. So what does this mean? We say now, and we're assisting clients as we speak, that premium brand or technical product owners can seek to implement a selective distribution system on their distributor resellers. That's that typo that I missed earlier, sorry, which can include preventing them from selling or reselling on Amazon, provided all the necessary justifications are met. And I think probably in closing then, just to sort of throw the questions up into the air, what next? Well, I've said already that we have, or the UK has, retained the Weber regulations under the Terms of Withdrawal Act. However, a lot of the interpretation around that used to be in the EU's guidance, and much of that guidance would talk to the integration of the EU single market, which of course the UK has now left. So what is being suggested on the back of these changes and the case history, based certainly on what we've seen to date, is that, you know, the direction of travel probably seems to be more towards protecting brand owners who've spent money, time, effort, and energy investing in their brands, and or in the technical nature of their products, and enabling them to seek further control of sales through third-party online channels. So although you're not going to be able to, as a blanket rule, say you can't charge this price, one of the consequences of selling on Amazon is typically prices do get driven down. And in most instances, people would say that's a good thing, and to prevent that would be anti-competitive in its nature. However, if I'm a brand owner and I've invested a lot of money in my brand, the classic example it's given is, Rolex watches. And if you kind of forget about fakes for a minute, Rolex don't want their genuine watches, which sell for £1,000 plus, to be sold by anyone for £500, whether that's on Amazon or otherwise, because if they do so, they would argue, Rolex would argue, that devalues and undermines all of the investment they've put into that brand. So hopefully, in true lawyer's waffle, I've given you a bit of an outline as to what selective distribution agreements, which we've seen a real increase in interest and demand for, can do to help brand owners protect themselves against the risks of a kind of race to the bottom, which sometimes the functionality of Amazon and eBay can generate. I will just say this though, there's a kind of another side to this in my final point where I talk about what about Amazon bestsellers. Again, I wasn't particularly familiar with the kind of concept of an Amazon bestseller before we got involved with clients who were seeking to essentially prevent their reselling distributors from continuously using Amazon. An Amazon bestseller, as I understand it, is the seller of a product on Amazon that Amazon decides, usually based predominantly on price, will kind of be, back to that analogy, first page one of Google. They'll be at the top. And I think I'm right in saying that, if you're an Amazon bestseller, as opposed to being anyone beneath that, you will get, again, a significantly greater number of the sales of that product as a whole. So typically, there's a real desire to be an Amazon bestseller. We've had clients, and this is where it has become more difficult, saying, we want to put a selective distribution agreement in place. We want to stop all of our distributors from selling on Amazon or eBay. And we've said, you can do that if you word it this way. But then they'll say, but we still want to be able to do that. And that's where it gets a bit more tricky. It can be done, hasn't been tested as far as I'm aware in court as yet, but it's certainly more of a grey area. So I will say to them, well, you've got to be careful not to be being hypocritical here. Why should you be able to sell on Amazon, but you're telling all your resellers that they can't? There are arguments you can run about the brand owner has a greater control and greater incentive around how their brand is presented on Amazon, but usually Amazon's terms are pretty black and white. They don't need to negotiate with any of their sellers. It's take it or leave it. So that has created some challenges. And certainly, as I said, some of the more, I guess, hard-nosed clients would say, we want to stop all our resellers from selling. We want to be bestseller on Amazon, and we don't want anyone else to be able to sell at all. And certainly that's led to some challenging conversations around just proportionality again, and trying to be realistic with them and their expectations. I'm conscious I probably talked for far too long. So that's my little, and I can see Kayleen's nodding, that's my 2 pence worth on selective distribution, and certainly one of the challenges we've seen during lockdown for clients whose online sales have increased. Thank you.
Thank you so much. We've had one question come in. Also, if anyone does have any questions for Alistair, just pop them either in the chat or the Q&A, and we'll pick these up a bit later on. So we've had a question from Julie saying, why don't they choose their distributors more carefully? If they are currently selling on Amazon or eBay, the chances are they will sell your products in the same way.
Yeah, and that's a really good question, and I guess I'd answer that by saying you're absolutely right. It's important that you sort of do your due diligence on your distributors. One of the challenges we've had, and I probably haven't talked to this, is they're already in business with a distributor. The distributor wasn't selling on Amazon, eBay, and then lo and behold, it'll often be for cash flow reasons. In my experience, a distributor needs to get rid of some stock quickly to get some cash in, so just stick it all on Amazon Marketplace and at a discounted value. And it's about what we've had to do with customers or clients is who've got existing terms with their distributors. We've written to the distributors and said, there are new terms, here they are, it's take it or leave it. And those new terms include the selective distribution element that itself includes the issue around not selling on a third-party platform. Obviously, if someone's already doing that, then I think Julie's right. You probably would potentially look to avoid them in the first place. But it's more likely where you've got an existing distributor with whom you've got an existing relationship who has done it. And then they'll say, well, what can we do about it? And in practical terms, you can wave the small print and say you're in breach of our terms and conditions. On a practical level, being candid for a minute, the advice that we've most typically given to clients in the first instance is to say to them, to convey to their distributors, if you carry on doing this, we'll switch you off. We won't keep supplying you. But it is much harder when they've already got stock to contemplate stopping them selling that stock. It is more of a forward-looking disincentive to say, if you carry on doing this, we won't supply to you anymore. You're outside of the club because you've broken the rules. But you're absolutely right. It's not a fail-safe. And again, we've got clients with distributors who've got existing stock whom we've had to write to and say, by the way, if you sell this on Amazon and eBay, you'll be in breach. In reality, as I always find myself saying, often find myself saying to clients, doesn't mean you're going to be able to kind of sue them easily or without a fight. So it's more of a forward-looking preventative measure. Hopefully that answers Julie's question.
Thank you. We've got another question, but I'm going to save it for later because I'm conscious of time. So Brian is next up. Brian, would you like to share your presentation? The other speakers are, it's up to you whether you want to keep your videos on or not. And again, if you've got any questions for Brian, pop them in the Q&A or the chat, or if you've in the middle writing one for Alistair, just label it for Alistair so I know later on. Over to you, Brian.
Thank you, Kayleen. Thank you, Alistair, as well. That was really interesting. I think my overview of that would be that it is always preferable and less risky to sell legally than illegally. So children, don't sell illegally. And whatever you do, talk to a lawyer before you do it. Talk to Alistair, of course. Okay, so selling to recover. I am going to talk about online and offline because for me, the two match perfectly. Selling is selling. It's only the medium that differs, but the process is often quite the same. So firstly, and particularly important in relation to an online environment, the world is far smaller than we think. We are far more connected to every single prospect and then customer than we ever have been in the entire history of humanity, however far back that may go, depending on your religious or otherwise beliefs, of course. So how do we know that? Well, we know it because some very kind people have proved it to us and for us. So I'm not going to cover these in too much detail, but Bacon's law, 20 odd years ago, Kevin Bacon was deduced to be connected to every single other actor on the planet, effectively, because they all route through Hollywood. And this was popular enough to determine a website, and still, if you're that bored, a game where you can go in and test the theory on a really great website. And you pop a name of any actor in, it will tell you how closely connected, up to 6 degrees of separation, that individual is to the glorious Kevin Bacon. But before that, in 1929, a Austrian author, poet and playwright, Frigyes Karinthy, determined this process in a fictional story called Chains, which is part of a short story book. And within this, they looked at different connections across the planet, deducing that the world was shrinking. And that people were indeed connected by 6 steps. So ahead of Kevin Bacon, Frigyes and his buddies were already on this. And in 1967, Stanley Milgram carried out some research with a few other folks looking at America, and that people were also connected by 6 steps maximum. So when we take that sort of information in and we think about how we sell and who we sell to, then what we can start to understand is we're a lot closer to that sale than we ever thought we would be. So that makes our life easier in relation to the ultimate outcome of sales, although the process can often be more difficult, of course. And then Mark, bless him, and Facebook in 2016 carried out some research, and this deduced that we're actually 3.57 links away from every other human on the planet. And this research was carried out extensively across a test of 1.6 billion users of Facebook as the platform then owned or possessed, whatever way you want to look at it. So 3.57 connections away from everybody you want to sell to is some pretty interesting stats, I think. Okay, so what? That's pretty interesting information, but how does that help us sell? Well, some of you may have filled in that blank already, but at the risk of not talking for another 15 minutes, I'm going to do it for you as well. So lovely Simon here, people don't buy what you do, they buy why you do it. You may disagree with that, that's fine. But there's got to be a purpose in your sale. You've got to believe in what you're trying to sell to somebody. You've not only got to believe in yourself with the ability to do it, you've got to believe in the purpose of the product. And it's very important that when we're in selling, we have authenticity when we do it. If you're just selling for money, you're probably missing the point, and you're probably missing the opportunities that exist as well. If there's a purpose in relation to your sale process, something you're helping, assisting, fixing, making better, making a difference to the world, then that passion, that determination, and that feeling, that emotion is going to pass across to your client to engage them in the conversation you may be having as well. Importantly as well, stuff doesn't happen if you don't make it happen. Okay. I used to work in with a bunch of partners. We grew a business called Highway into Highway Emergency Services, then sold it to HomeServe. Back in 2003, we were the largest service provider to the insurance industry. And we used to franchise parts of the business up until we bought them all back in the late 90s. And I remember a franchisee in Cumbria calling us up as an emergency, and I went to see him, lovely old guy. And he said, I'm not getting any business. And I said, why not? And he pointed at the phone and he said, because that's not ringing. And I said, well, what are you doing to make it ring? And he stared at me with a blank expression because he didn't know what I meant. So we've got to make things happen if we want to attract people to our business. We can't just hope and cross our fingers and not work hard to expect that outcome that we're going to get. We've got to really work on it. Okay, so an important caveat here would be aware of the context, be aware of the tone of our messaging at the moment. We've just been through 12 months of the worst situation that probably most people will have experienced. So we've got to be very, very mindful in how we sell and market, and excellent Naked Marketing will be along soon to talk about the marketing space. I'm not going to cover too much of that. So we've got to be very aware of our tone. We've got to be aware of how we contact people, but people still need to buy stuff. They still have needs. They still have problems that need to be solved. And importantly, with a product and an offer, we need to think about what we're selling, and we need to think about what does it solve? What's the problem that we're solving, okay? And if you've been through sales, we look at feature advantage and then we look at benefit. What does the customer get? That's what they want to know. They'll be interested in all the other stuff that's relative to the product, but they want to know how it betters their life. How does it save them money? How does it improve their environment? Or how does it take problems off their desk? Very, very important that we understand that. So what problem do we solve, and how do we present that to people? How do we present our brand, which Naked will talk about as well? How do we present our business, and how do we present our offering? What do those things look like? How professional are we in that, and how much do we care about how those things are perceived in the wider world? And also importantly, don't just take your own word or your mother's for it. Go and ask your customers what they think, because they'll be the honest ones, whereas your friends and family may not be. Okay, so we've thought about the problem that we solve. Our product, our service offering solves this problem, but then what we have to do next in our step process is look at who has this problem, who out there has the problem that we solve. There will be many people. If we have a plumbing company, for instance, then we're going to solve the problem of people that have got a broken boiler. If we sell IT or software, we're probably going to look at solving the problem of efficiency or cost or updating of that particular business. There's going to be a whole bunch of problem reasons, and once we've understood what those problems are, we've got to understand who has the problem. It's really important in sales and marketing to narrow down your target as precisely as you can. And I always look at the aspect of narrowing down to the ideal client profile, and then you can kind of grow back outwards to include everyone in the world should you wish to. But unless you understand who your solution is, it's going to be very difficult to market and target and therefore sell convincingly and successfully to the right type of individual or individuals within a business. And remember as well, when we're selling, we may be selling B2B or B2C, but we're selling to a person. whichever we're doing. So we don't sell to a business, we sell to the people in it, and we sell to the people in it based on the establishment of a good quality relationship as well. So never lose sight of the fact that it's a business person that will make a decision, and it's a person within the business that makes the choice about whether you get used or not. Okay, so we've identified the problem, we've determined that we're solving a problem, we've now identified what the problem is and the types of people that may have this problem, but where are they? Where do we find these people? I meet too many people when I ask them who their customer is, they say everyone, which simply isn't true. So we've got to really narrow down and target down to the ideal user, the ideal client profile of our product. And once we've identified them, we've got to find out where they live, what they drive. Do they all drive a particular type of car, for instance? Are they members of a particular type of group? Do they hang around on LinkedIn in the same sorts of areas? Do they read The Guardian rather than the Daily Mail? Do they read a particular type of magazine? What are their hobbies? What are their pastimes? What are their activities? We've got to understand those things to really narrow down so we can then look at the repeat mechanism of positive marketing to the right type of person that can be a successful sale to us as an organization. And once we've started to look at those things, we might also look at partnership arrangements that may work well for us. When we were running Highway, we determined that it was a lot easier dealing with an insurance company with one claims director who made a procurement decision based on who they were going to use and then represented a client portfolio of maybe, in the case of someone like Churchill, 3.5 million customers. And I still like those models. So if there's a group or an association that represents 100 of your perfect type of customer, go and find out how to operate and place your product in front of that organization through the organization owners. Chamber is a great example of that, but there's plenty of others around as well, either golf clubs or associations, different representative bodies that operate in the space that you might want to operate in are all very good to look at, and look at how you can put on a seminar or an event or publish information that may be available to those people through a third party. And also, as importantly as well, how do those people find you? What is your online presence and journey like? It's no good having a website if nobody can find it, if it's not referenced properly, if you don't drive people towards it. It's a bit like having a shop 2 streets away from the high street and expecting all that high street traffic to find you. They're not going to find you unless you put a sign on the edge of the high street telling them where you are. So you've got to look at that same aspect in relation to how people find you. And that again will be covered in some of your marketing activity. Okay, so tips in relation to our sales provision. You've got to connect before the opportunity and not with it. People don't tend to buy on the first opportunity of meeting with you. There's a bit of background knowledge there. If depending on the price point, there may be some due diligence as well that needs to go on. They might need to know more about your business. So don't use the opportunity as your basis of connection. You've got to connect and build a relationship with that individual to therefore present the opportunity to them. Now there may be slightly different examples of this. I mentioned earlier a plumber, and maybe if you're having a boiler service, that may be a little bit different to buying a new car, for instance. However, you've still got to know the individual that's coming to you, and you've still got to like them enough to want to engage with them and trust them enough. And they may have been referred to you, so that trust box has been ticked. You may have put a post on Facebook about looking for a particular type of service provision, and some people that you know on Facebook have recommended some people to you. So there's different aspects of that, but generally the buying process is going to be followed along that know, like, and trust mentality. Qualify who you were talking to. I often find a lot of prospecting exists in sales where the salesperson says, oh yeah, we've got this great deal with this company, and they're talking to completely the wrong person. They're talking to the person that reports back to the person that makes the decision. So they've never really got the audience of the buyer. So it's very important and completely professional and normal to deduce this information at the start of the buying process and ask the type of questions that are important. And you don't have to say, have you got the authority to make this decision, and insult them. You might want to ask what the buying process actually is, and in general, how does that operate? Where does it go? Does it go before a board? Is it a budget-led decision that person controls, and so on? And it's important to know that before we understand whether there's an opportunity for sale that may exist in that particular relationship at all. Listen to the problem before you sell the solution. Again, very important. We've got to show empathy and understanding to our client. We want to know what their problem is that we're trying to solve. And if we don't understand the problem, we may not have the solution. And if we don't have the correct solution, it may be a very short-term relationship that we build with that client, and a very disappointing one on their part as well, and not very good if we're looking for referrals and general local market awareness. So really listen and be prepared to question them to get to the point of what the exact problem is that you're looking to solve, and whether you're the solution for that provider or not. If we take the sale knowing full well that we can't solve the problem, then again, it may well be a very negative process as opposed to the positive one that we like. And we've got to know our offer completely. We need to know enough about it to be able to very technically, if needs be, and very confidently provide the solution or the idea of the solution to that particular client to solve their problem. It's very important that we have the knowledge that we need, but also the confidence to pass along to someone else or engage someone else in conversation if you need to move the technical conversation a little bit further along than you're qualified for. So never be shy of saying, I don't know the answer to that one, but I'll either come back to you, or I need to involve my friend Kayleen, my colleague Kayleen in this discussion, and she'll be able to answer that for you. Empathy and understanding we've already spoken about, but we've got to care about our customer. This is also prevalent in relation to lockdown as well, and ensure that we've been keeping in contact with our customers, even though they may not have been buying from us. Important from a sales perspective, because when we want to turn that tap back on, we need to make sure we've got clients that still respect us and are happy enough with us that we've bothered to ask them how they are, even though they might not be spending money with us at the time. Concentrate only on what you do and not what other people don't. I don't like politic-led sales where a company will look to negate the competitors to be able to make a sale. A client is intelligent enough to make their own choices. I clicked onto a feedback website a few days ago, recommended to me by a colleague, and the majority of the website was taken up with bad-mouthing their competition. As a chart of how much better they were than their competition. It immediately made me click off the website. I found it really unprofessional and moderately immoral and hugely impolite. So I think you sell yourself and let the client decide about the competition, unless they may ask you a specific question, but always keep that answer polite and professional, of course. Outline your offer to the best of your ability and then shut up. You know what you sell, and you know what the client's problem is. The client will have a process to determine whether your offer is best for them. And you have to ensure that you do that, and you've done it to the best of your ability. You've outlined your product, your service, whatever it may be, and that you then stop talking, and having understood the buying process, you know then what the next step is going to be with the client. They're going to put it before the board next Tuesday, and the board is going to make a decision, and you can talk again on Wednesday and determine what the outcome of that is, or they're going to make an immediate decision, or they want a day to think about it, or whatever it is. And once you've done all the sales bits that you can, then that's time to leave the client to make their decision, and make sure that process is led in relation to what the follow-up to that is going to be. And as we've agreed that timeline for a decision, we need to stick to it. If we say we're going to call them next Wednesday, don't call them on Tuesday, and certainly don't call them on Thursday. You've got to, or contact them, I should say, sorry. You've got to ensure that you are sticking, you've agreed a timeline, you're going to stick to that agreed timeline with them as well. The other thing I think that I just mentioned too, just based on some of the things that Alistair was saying in his presentation too. Price is a really important part of selling and setting your price point, and your price to a certain extent. Online, we've got certain factors that are going to make it a lot easier to price compare for organizations, because it's a quick click to determine what your competitor is selling the product at. But you've also got to make your choice based on what your business needs to make as well, and the profitability of your business. And there's a number of different models that will work with that. It may well be that you stack them high and sell them cheap, and your profit margin is lower but the volume is greater, or you have a larger profit provision and a lower volume in relation to your product. You've got to understand those things as you develop your business. But it's also important to remember that price tends to only really go one way in business, and it's going to be down, more so online because of that competition. But if you've got a value-led offer that you have, and if you can pack value into your offer as well, and the perceived value that doesn't necessarily cost you, but it's perceived by the customer that adds a financial value to their product point or their service, your service, then that's far more preferable, of course. But you've got to be price competitive in relation to what you do as well. So it can be a difficult balance. And I think I'll just touch on sales into the EU as well. I've now set up some channels into a couple of European countries. I sell time, so it's a little bit different for me. I don't have VAT imposition in relation to my products or levies or whatever else it may be. But I've read some cases recently of people that have set up sort of groups where they're looking at taking premises in the European Union as distribution centres. So I think there's always a way to be able to look at dealing with a problem accordingly, understanding the legal provision of it correctly as well, of course. But I find in business there's always a solution to a problem. You just got to search it out a little bit further, or decide that maybe that area is not right for you. But I don't think we should give up on sales across other parts of the planet as well. And it may well be wise to look at other opportunities that may exist. And there's loads of organisations like the DTI and so on that can help you with those things as well. The other thing I was just going to mention too is we're really lucky in the Norwich and Norfolk area to be neighbours to some really intelligent people in the space of digital, and that there's some really interesting stuff ongoing at the moment across digital, and particularly selling online with things like Shopify and various other places. Nathan Lomax has just started running a program series with James Davey and a couple of other folks just based on this very subject. And we've got the excellent Heloise Finch that exists locally that operates specifically in relation to online selling as well. So I think people like that are worth a look up. So that's me. I might not have talked for long enough. I'm really not sure. I can't remember what the timing was, but if anyone has any questions, then I would be happy to answer them.
Thank you, Brian, and it was a good timing, so don't you worry. We have got a couple of questions. So the first one is, what's the most important thing you could do to develop your sales through recovery?
Okay. I think the ideal thing for me is really know your customer. One of the things would be having kept in contact with your customers through lockdown. As I mentioned, regardless of whether you're selling them anything or not, you've got to keep those relationships going so they're ready when we do get back to whatever version of normal comes along. And I think the better we know our customer, the better we can understand how much we help them as well. And if you've had downtime through lockdown or still have some lockdown breaking, whenever that may be, really look at refining your offer and your understanding of what your product really does for your customer base and who your customers are. Probably take that downtime if you've had a bit to really refine your offering and really understand it fully. But I think the big thing for me would be to really understand your customer, really understand the person who buys your product and why they buy it.
Thank you. And that leads nicely into our other question, which is, how important is emotional connection in selling?
My personal opinion is hugely. I've never sold a product in my life that I didn't want to sell and I didn't believe was right for the person who bought it in a 44-year career. I think that if we want to look at it in a cold salesy type of way, the better you know someone, the more you can understand their problems. Therefore, the more opportunity you have to provide them with something that they need because they trust you enough to do it. Now, you could go all negative NLP with this and look at the coercion of sales. You could get a bunch of people in a room and offer them a television if they watch a timeshare presentation. And that's one end of it. Or you could really care about your customer and helping them with their problems, which is exactly the same type of sale, really. And I believe that we don't sell stuff. I believe we solve problems for people. That's what we're doing. And the more emotionally connected we are to them, the more they'll listen to us when we talk, the more we'll want to listen to them when they talk. And the more likely they are, the less likely they are to sack you going forward. Because if I've got to sack Kayleen, that's a completely different prospect to sacking the person that sells me, ice coolers or water coolers or whatever it may be. Completely different emotional journey. So I'd probably give far more rope to that individual than I would if I didn't really know them that well. So emotion is vital, but for good reasons, not bad.
Thank you. That's it for the time being. However, it's not the end of that. If anyone's got any other questions for Brian, feel free to pop it in the chat or the Q&A function. Just label them Brian and we can ask them later on. So that leads me in nicely to introducing Dan and James from Naked Marketing, and Steve, who you can see in the background. So Dan, over to you. Alistair and Brian, it's completely up to you if you want to keep your videos on or not.
Thanks, Kayleen. Thanks, Alistair. Thanks, Brian. I feel like you've done our talk for us, actually, with Brian talking very aptly about marketing and how that kind of crosses over into sales. And Alistair, you're talking about brand image and positioning. So we can just skip to the end now, Kayleen, if you like. So why are we talking to you today? Well, yes, Kayleen asked us to, but also at Naked, we believe marketing doesn't have to be difficult or big budget. That's why we want to share a few insights with you today. We think great potential can lie in the smallest of places. That's why Naked exists. That's our kind of purpose. We want to give businesses of all shapes and sizes access to professional and creative branding, design and marketing, essentially in the end to help them succeed. We like to keep things honest and simple, and hopefully that's what we're going to do here in the next sort of 20 minutes or so. So I guess briefly, why should you care about your brand and marketing? Well, there's been some really interesting points already brought up in the talks, and like I say, there's been actually quite a lot of crossover. I promise we didn't share notes, but before we started each presentation, but there's been some really interesting points raised. But one thing that I always come back to is that it has been proven through studies that businesses that invest in their brand outperform the market average. So I think that highlights the importance of thinking about your brand, defining your brand, and then using that to focus your marketing and marketing and sales from there. So in the next 20 minutes or so, we'll be looking into 4 crucial steps that we at Naked use to define your brand and focus your marketing, and ultimately deliver results on a smaller budget, because brand and marketing isn't just for those with big budgets. So in true Naked style, let's start off just by undressing these fancy words: brand, branding, marketing. Firstly, what is brand? Now this made me laugh. Alistair, you had a picture of Jeff in your presentation, and we also have Jeff in our presentation. Or you only gave him credence for being a billionaire, and we've got him in as being a zillionaire. So he's probably made a bit more money in the past few minutes since we've been talking. So what is brand? So we've probably all heard this quote from Jeff Bezos. Your brand is what other people say about you when you're not in the room. I really like this saying because it highlights the fact that brand really exists in the minds of others. It's pretty out of your control, to be honest with you. It's your reputation in a nutshell. You can't directly control it, but you can try to have an influence on it. And you do that by how you look as a brand, how you look, how you talk, and how you act. So that's, in as simple a way as possible, that's how I would define brand. So when we talk about how you look, talk, and act, that leads us nicely on to branding. So branding is what brands use to try and influence my people's thoughts and feelings about them. Simply put, branding is your look and feel. It's how a brand portrays itself to the outside world. What does it achieve? Well, branding can build understanding about who you are and what you offer as a brand. It can help you establish your brand in people's heads. It helps your brand stand out. It helps you more memorable. So when Brian mentioned brands, when selling, they're looking to solve problems. When someone is faced with a problem, if your brand is memorable, your brand becomes the instant solution to their problem, and that's where you want to get to. And in terms of positioning, why I've got this picture here is branding is all about finding a seat on a crowded bus. So it's how can you make your brand stand out against the others? If all the brands in a certain sector are doing one thing, what can you do that makes you sit apart from those and helps make you memorable? Branding can have a direct influence on the way people think and feel about your brand. So good branding, we mentioned earlier about, it's what people say when you're not in the room. Well, good branding hopefully encourages people to say stuff like this when you're not in the room. That brand is brilliant, you should check it out. That's a marker of success, really. So that's branding. Let's talk about marketing. James is going to give you a naked undressing of what we think marketing is.
Thanks, Dan. Also, thanks, Alistair, and thanks, Brian. So, yeah, as Brian's already done a lovely job of simplifying sales, which naturally ties into marketing. I'll give you a very quick overview of how we see marketing here at Naked, and the fact that we honestly believe that marketing doesn't need to be overcomplicated. The very premise of marketing is simple. Every business in the world, regardless of size, has a product or a service, sometimes both, that they need to put in front of a customer. The challenge is the same for every single business. And what is the connection between the two? It's typically marketing. It's to find what connects those products and services to those people. And obviously there are a whole number of things that come into it, such as sales, such as variables, but typically marketing is that connection between the two, and it doesn't need to be more complicated than that. So what will that result in? It will hopefully ultimately result in increased leads, increased sales, greater brand awareness, and Dan will start you off here, but talk you through the steps required to find the missing link, and steps required to try and find what's great about your business and how you can get your product or service effectively in front of the customer you want to.
I wanted to, just before we jump into the 4 steps that we've got in our process, I wanted to just focus in a little bit on branding and marketing in the online world. So, how are the nuances of the online world? How do they affect the world of brand and marketing? So online, it's very, very crowded. There's lots of brands trying to compete, lots of brands desperate to stand out. So it's even more important for your brand to stand out in the online world. Brands have to work harder to stand out. Consumers have so many options at their fingertips. There's far less effort to shop around or switch providers. Brands need to work harder to build that loyalty with customers. So more investment in your brand is needed, to be honest, in the online world. You have so many more options to communicate your brand and its messages. You've got social media, you've got YouTube videos, you've got blogs, you've got online ads, you've got search results. There's so many different ways for you to get your message out there. And it's also quicker to build a reputation online. Now, that can be a good thing. You can build a really good reputation really quickly, or it can be a bad thing. With review sites, you can build a bad reputation very quickly. So again, brands have to just really work really hard to maintain that good reputation. There is an opportunity with an online business as well of building a story. So rather than being another faceless online business or website that nobody really knows who's behind it, or who runs the business, actually there's an opportunity to build a story around your brand. Who are you? Who are the people involved in it? What's their history? What's their expertise? Where's your brand come from? What's the idea behind it? There's actually a good opportunity there to build something to make you stand out online. Having a web presence is obviously step 1. Having a good web presence is step 2, and that's where we really try and help people. And digital marketing, all these ways that we just talked about here, allows you significant touch points to access your customers, like I say, to get your message and communication out there. And just one other thing as well, obviously this event is kind of sparked by the pandemic and how businesses recover and grow from here. These are a few ways in which we've seen in our business how COVID has affected the worlds of brands and marketing. And actually, Brian, you touched on a couple of these just now. That whole opportunity to kind of slow down and evaluate what's important. A brand can really have the chance to redefine what they do, who they do it for, and why. that information can really strengthen the brand's position and establish firm foundations on which to build. You take that into authentic and relevant messaging that a brand can live by, and that will feed into marketing and sales. From the other end, I think consumers are probably more aware of ethics, and they're probably looking more for brands that they can really entrust and align with. There seems to be a lot more awareness of values and purpose, and brands that truly care and are here for a reason. And we've also seen the emergence of new, brave challenger brands, as unfortunately some businesses have fallen victim to the pandemic, or people's jobs have. Out of that, there's been the birth of new brands, new startup businesses that are challenging the status quo. And some of that is quite exciting. So these are just a few ways that we've seen kind of how the world of brand and marketing has shifted during the pandemic. James, I think you've got a couple of points of how it's specific to marketing as part of this.
Yeah, I think there's probably always a perception with some companies that marketing is something that you do when you're doing well. So things are going great, right? We've got a bit of extra money we can throw towards marketing. But actually, I think businesses have realized in times like what's happened in the last 12 months, that actually maybe marketing is more important now than ever to understand what your customers want, what you're trying to sell to them. And ultimately, marketing's primary role is to help you find customers and then convert them. And if at the minute you're struggling to find customers because of what's happened by outside influences, well, now is more important than ever to understand what you need to do. So actually, there should be a greater focus now on marketing rather than when you're doing well. So that's one thing we've seen with a number of customers, this redefined focus, which both Brian and Alistair have mentioned anyway. Alistair mentioned around really defining what your website is good and what its purpose is. This is a great time to be doing it right now, because as Dan's mentioned, having a website is one thing, having a good website is another thing. Just simply having a presence now isn't enough, because everybody has a presence. So what can you do with your website to make sure it achieves the goals you want? And we'll come on to some of those steps shortly. And obviously, COVID, the C word, as we've kind of dubbed it in-house, has opened up significant opportunities for a number of online businesses. And businesses that perhaps weren't that online orientated before have now had a huge shift from being, 30% online sales to 60% online sales. And with that comes a whole heap of challenges around how do you maintain your levels of customer service? How do you keep your customers just as happy without face-to-face interaction? All of these challenges have come along, but with challenges, there are always opportunities. And that's what we've seen in the last 12 months, particularly for businesses in Norfolk. All of a sudden, it's opened us up a little bit to the rest of the UK, which again, Alistair's alluded to. And all of a sudden, there are opportunities for small local businesses here in Norfolk to really branch out and take advantage at the minute.
So let's launch into our 4 steps that we've obviously condensed them for today's presentation. There's obviously a lot of kind of sub steps that go into this, but as a kind of high level overview, I suppose, of what we do. This is what we trying to complete in order to define a brand and focus marketing when working for people. So step 1, the first thing we do is uncover your greatness. So what's at the heart of your business and brand? What do you want to stand for? What do you want people to know you for? How do you differentiate? There is a famous quote in the world of marketing. I can't think of who it is at the moment, but the quote of differentiate or die. Essentially, if you don't differentiate, your business won't survive. So this is where we're trying to find out what you're going to say. It's all very well doing marketing, but you need to know what you're going to say. Otherwise, you're throwing lots of darts and hoping that one of them sticks. So some examples I wanted to include here of ways in which brands define themselves and what they stand for in order to shape what people remember them for. So examples might include, this is not an exhaustive list, but examples might include having a world-saving purpose. Maybe your brand is here to solve a climate emergency. Maybe a brand has a concern for a particular group of people and they provide a solution to help them. So a brand like Age UK, for instance. Maybe at the heart of your brand is reinvention and innovation. Maybe you can bring a new technology or way of doing things that only you can and nobody else can. So think of Dyson when they reinvented the vacuum, for instance, or Apple with technology. It could be a very unique style or design. So probably for clothing or homewares brands. One that comes to mind is Orla Keeley with the very unique pattern that's recognizable and is what people remember about the brand. It could be a unique aspect of customer service. For instance, free returns for online sales. I know that was a big part of ASOS's growth as an online retailer. And or it could be, like I mentioned earlier, a unique background story, a story around the brand, where it came from, what it's about, who's behind it. All of these things are ways in which you can build a bit of meaning behind the brand and help people remember you for a certain thing. The worst thing for a brand is to be forgotten. A forgotten brand is the worst nightmare for a brand. Another example, actually, to add here, it could be a clearly defined niche in what you offer, so service or product. For instance, you could be a solicitor's that offers services in a very specialized area of the law, for instance. So these are all ways to find your seat on the bus. I keep coming back to that analogy. It doesn't have to be as big as saving the world, but it should be authentic and unique to you. Again, I think Brian touched on that authenticity about you, rather than looking at other people and shouting about what they don't do. So that's finding the greatness. That's finding out what you want to say to people. The next step is about differentiating. So James is going to talk you through step 2. Take it away, James.
So yeah, as Dan's alluded to, step 1 is let's find everything that's great about your business. Let's really discover what is at the heart of what you do, why you do it, and what you offer. Then the next part is saying, okay, great. Now we know what we're about. Does that help us stand apart from others? Because ultimately, you're against other competition here. It is pretty rare that anybody is in any market when nobody else is in it. So does what you believe in, does what you're good at stand you apart from the rest of the competition? And that's where Dan alludes to, how do you find the seat on the crowded bus? So take a look at what your competitors are doing. Who else does what you're doing? What do they do well? What do they do not so well? And inevitably, you will find things your competitors do to give you ideas to think, do you know what? We could do that. That's not a bad idea. Here's how we could do it, but maybe a little bit better. Equally, you'll be able to identify things your competitors aren't doing, and that opens up an opportunity for things that you can do. So all of a sudden, by taking a look at who you are and where you sit amongst your competitors, you will identify a number of opportunities to help you going forward, identify sales opportunities, marketing opportunities, etc. It also allows you to discover your weaknesses, which I think is really important for businesses. I don't think it always has to be about these are our strengths. Understanding where your own weaknesses lie against the competition is really important, because when you come to selling, when you come to positioning yourself, if you're aware of the facts that actually, if we go up against a competitor in a straight shootout on this subject matter, we're going to lose. Well, you know, you don't want to get into that fight. You want to take it down a different path. So it just means that you're aware of your strengths and your weaknesses, and you can act accordingly. And therefore, what this leaves you with at the end is understanding if your point of difference you've established from discovering your greatness makes you stand out. And if it doesn't, maybe you should revisit step 1 to find, okay, what is it about us which can really help us stand out?
Thanks, James. So next step, we've found out what's great about us. We've looked at our market and our competition, and we have established that what we believe in, what we want to stand for, is unique enough to roll with it. So we know what we're going to be saying. We know no one else can say it. So next, we need to give people reasons to believe what we're going to say. We need to deliver proof points. Why should people believe what we're saying? We know what makes our brand quality. So how do we make people believe that that's true? So let's show them evidence. Proof points is another way of saying it. So show them what you do as a brand that backs up what you're claiming to be your greatness. So a couple of examples here to help illustrate. If you've decided that your brand is going to be all about being green and sustainability, maybe that's your greatness in your market. Perhaps you could carbon balance your production and delivery. Perhaps you could plant a tree for every sale that you make, or perhaps all the packaging that you use is 100% recycled. They act as proof points to start to build an understanding of that greatness, as actually this brand isn't just saying things, it's actually living it. Another example might be your brand is offering a premium quality food product. So the proof points could be talk about the processes that you go through to ensure quality, the processes that you do that others perhaps don't. Talk about the ingredients that you source, that the extra trouble that you take to source the finest ingredients means that you create the finest quality food that tastes better. And you could talk about the quality accreditations that maybe you carry as a brand, just to kind of reinforce that notion of superior quality. So they're examples of evidence that starts to build an understanding, starts to prove that what you're saying is true. It starts to build that authenticity and all-important trust in a brand. So once you've done those first three steps, you're in a really good place. You know what you're going to say, you know it stands out, and you've got some really solid points of proof that you can start to take to market. So no prizes for guessing what step 4 is. It's time to go to market. So James, do you want to talk through how to start shouting about?
Yeah, so I think as Dan's alluded to, at this point in time, you've got a brand that's clearly aligned and you believe in. You've probably got a website that's ready to help drive new traffic and leads. You understand where you sit in your market, and now you need to give your entire marketing efforts a kickstart. So you've got the car, now you need the petrol, and now you need your map. So you need to give it some fuel and you need to give it some extra direction. So in true naked sell, let's keep it simple. Marketing doesn't need to be complicated here. So from the previous steps, you will have undoubtedly identified a number of key opportunities for your business, some of which Dan's mentioned in previous comments. You also have a vast toolkit of marketing tactics to use. So there's a whole number listed up on the screen here. Some of these you will be able to do yourselves. Some you might require assistance from agencies or family or whoever else has expertise in, but you have all of these at your disposal as a business, one way or another. You have access to all of these. And that's the great advantage of digital, is that all of a sudden a whole range of toolkit has just been presented to each and every one of us to help market our business. So with this in mind, now you must create a clear and actionable marketing plan. And for us, this is absolutely key. I think too many marketing plans are probably a little bit theoretical, a little bit driven high in the sky, where actually somebody comes along, looks at it, and it is immediately lost. And actually, for us, any marketing plan needs to be clear, it needs to be actionable. And I would maybe go one step further to say, in my opinion, a good marketing plan means that if you or your colleague is run over by a bus, somebody else can come along the next day, look at that plan and know exactly what to do. That's how clear and actionable it should be if it's going to be able to deliver success. And why does that make it easier? It means that you can always be held accountable to what's on that plan to deliver the action. And then we'll come on to some of the other steps in a minute, but make it clear and actionable is absolutely key. So to make a clear and actionable marketing plan, what questions do you need to ask yourself? So what do you need to do to deliver that opportunity? So what's the process to deliver that opportunity? So for example, say the opportunity was to become a thought leader in your industry, which is something Alice has touched on earlier in terms of the ranking on the first page for a certain bit of content. So what's the process to become a thought leader, for instance? So you're going to need content to prove why you're a thought leader. You're going to need to answer your customers' questions. You're going to need to promote this content via social media. You might need to speak at webinars or events like this. You're going to need validation from your customers via reviews or testimonials, or you're going to need others in your industry to say, look, you need to go and speak with these guys. So that's the process that's going to be required. So what content will you need to support you? So you might need a long bit of content which you post on LinkedIn, which explains why you know everything about everything in the industry. You might want case studies or testimonials to post on your website or to post on social media. You might want to collect reviews from customers so that you've got a whole bank of validation as to why your company is the best in the industry. So you know what's required, you know what content you're going to need. Now you can begin to choose which marketing activity will suit that the best. So would it be a webinar? Would it be a video? Would it be a blog post? Would it be social media? Would it be email marketing? What about putting it on the website? What you have to consider at this point is where will your customer or potential customer be looking to be able to see you as a thought leader? And then the final step is, what supporting material will I need? So if you're doing videos, who's going to produce the videos for you? Can you do it yourself? Do you need additional support? Do you need an expert to help with any elements of the toolkit? And who's going to ask your customers questions for the case study, for instance? But very quickly, by just going through that process of identifying things you can do to establish the opportunity of becoming a thought leader, you will have 10, 12 actionable elements there, which can be 1 month, 2 month, 3 months activity on any marketing plan. And you know step by step what's required to deliver those. And very quickly, you can become a thought leader in industry. And it might be, in Alistair's example, you have a bit of content on your website, which now ranks first page on Google and begins to drive additional traffic, additional leads to your business. It is very much as simple as that. So very quickly, you've now got some activity, and that process is the same for every opportunity. Take every opportunity you've identified and go, okay, what do I need to make this happen? What are my clear actionable points? List them out, and very quickly, you're well on the way to having a succinct marketing plan for an entire year. So finally, what makes marketing successful? So in our opinion, the things that make marketing successful are 3 things. Be consistent, be patient, test and learn. So the best brands out there are always the consistent ones. You can't expect any customer to understand what you're trying to sell to them or tell them if you change your message every week. It's never going to work. You've got to be consistent. Great examples here are McDonald's, that every McDonald's you walk into, probably anywhere in the world, it looks and it feels the same. The quality of the food is pretty much the same. Their theme tune sound on all advertising is pretty much the same anywhere you hear it in the world. That's because they're really, really consistent, and that's why they have one of the strongest brands out there. Be patient. Changing tact every week is not going to deliver results, or if it does deliver results, you won't know which part of your plan did deliver results to be able to improve it again next time. So always be patient. Give something a period of time to work. We cannot expect instant results for anything in life, probably. So especially in marketing, be prepared to be patient. And then what will that allow you to do? It will allow you to test and learn. So if you're consistent and if you're patient, you will be able to identify which parts of your marketing plan are working, which parts are not working. So you can take the bits which are working and go, great, where can we apply that even more? How can we improve that even further? And equally, those bits that haven't worked, that isn't failure. That just means that it hasn't worked on this occasion. So what can we do for next time to improve that? So we'll test, we'll learn, and you just carry that process on throughout the year, and you'll be there in a position at the end of the year going, okay, how did we do? What worked well? What can we take into next year? And you just follow the same process again, and very quickly an actionable marketing plan forms itself. And that's our kind of quick overview of how you can pull all of this together into a clear and actionable marketing plan.
Yeah, so thanks, James. So to summarize the 4 steps, we've got uncover your greatness, finding out what you're going to say. Next step is working out whether it stands out against the competition. Do a competitor analysis. Ask your customers, ask your suppliers, who else is in your industry. Find out what other people are saying. Make sure that you stand out. Make sure you differentiate. Step 3, find those reasons to make people believe what you're saying. Work out the proof points. find out the USPs and build your message based on those, and then start shouting about it. Find out the best ways to go shouting about it, make a plan, start doing it. The process, it doesn't need to be complicated or expensive, like I said at the start. Every one of us is a marketeer in our day-to-day lives. Most of us have a LinkedIn or social media account. We're marketing ourselves. We're shaping our image to spread a message and help people change people's opinions of what they think of us at first instance. It's all marketing. Once you've done these steps, another analogy, but it helps you fill up the well. You know, the well that you go to when you're looking for content in order to market your brand. You know, you need somewhere to start. So just to finalize, there's just a quick exercise that we would do at the end of a process like this, which is a simple statement which you can try and fill out once you've done those 4 steps. So the statement starts with we, which is, you know, our brand, your brand, will, and this is where you insert your greatness, what makes you great compared to others. And then you will believe that because, and then you have your 5 key proof points or USPs. So as an example, I just did one quickly for Naked for you, just to show you. So we, Naked Marketing, our brand, will make you forget all you think you know about creative design and marketing agencies. Now that's because we looked at ourselves and discovered that our difference, our greatness was about being deliberately different to the stereotypical kind of creative agency cliche of being, you know, expensive, flashy, talking in complicated language, all that sort of thing is where Naked comes from. So you believe that because, and these are our 5 proof points that back up that statement. So we truly believe in delivering better value and making a positive impact with the people we work with. What we offer, our services, they're all priced and structured to be accessible to all shapes and sizes of business, not just big budget, like I said. Potential lies in the smallest of places. Our team is small, we are lean, and we are experienced. As a client, you would get to speak directly to the people working on your project. Again, it's just changing the kind of stereotypical agency cliche. Naked, stripped back, straight talking, no nonsense, no jargon, actionable marketing. And finally, we're open, honest, and transparent. We want to form positive long-term relationships with our clients. So, all right, me talking that through to you right now sounds like a bit of a sales pitch, but it's not meant to be. It's designed to highlight how, by doing that exercise and by going through those steps, we've landed on one page a foundation for a whole plethora of key messages that we can put out there, content that we can start building, communication for the Naked brand that we can start to do. And that's by understanding kind of what exists, understanding our market and understanding Naked's place in it. So yeah, we use those as a basis for our culture and all the communication that our brand does. So that's the last slide. Thank you very much. Thanks everybody. So over to you, Kayleen, for questions and whatever comes next.
Thank you so much. Apologies, we are slightly over, but I am going to ask questions because I feel while we're here, we might as well. If anyone needs to leave, that's absolutely fine. Thank you so much for joining us. So not sure who wants this, maybe James. So obviously when you were going through your 4 points, you said that step 1 was to uncover your greatness. But what if there isn't any greatness in a brand or a business?
Yeah, I think it's a good question, and one that probably makes me instantly think that the person who said that isn't truly believing in what they offer, firstly. And I think, as Brian's already alluded to, it's really important you genuinely believe in what you're trying to achieve. And there will always be a greatness in your brand. It might be that you can find greatness. If your competitors, there's a big gap that none of your competitors are filling, perhaps your opportunity to find greatness might be in filling that gap. Or it might be that what you're doing at the minute is really good, but isn't great yet. So how can you take one of your core offerings and turn that into being great? So it's going, okay, customer service, we're really good, but how does that become our greatness? And you go, okay, what would make us great at customer service? And then go, okay, well, if we did this, this, and this, we would become, this would be our greatness. So every business always has the opportunity to find greatness. And sometimes it's developed a little bit over time. You don't instantly have to be able to find it there and then. Sometimes it's a bit of a learning journey, and particularly for new businesses, their greatness or their kind of differential at times will have to change and adapt as their business grows and adapts as well. Because to start with, they might be really lean and really small, and that might be their point of difference, that they're just a one-man band and therefore they can deliver everything a little bit better. But as that business grows, that uniqueness departs. They can't say that anymore, so they have to find a new element. So it's constantly changing, and we recommend kind of taking a look at this every year or two to say, okay, does it still apply? As Dan's alluded to at Naked, we did this ourselves in the summer because we felt we needed to do it again and re-establish where we sat. So yes, you can always find greatness. You're not doomed to failure if you can't find it instantly.
Kayleen.
Brian, yes.
May I just add a really quick point to that, please? I think it's really important to think about this really sensibly as well. If you can't determine your greatness or your purpose as a business, how and why do you expect your customers to buy from you? You've got to really determine what the point is in you as a business and you as an offering to really help those customers understand why they should buy your product or your service, as James and Dan said, compared to anyone else in the market. And if you don't understand what your greatness is, keep working until you find it. It's in there somewhere, but you need to know it. You need to know it to make it really sure that your customers understand what they're buying and how to market yourself more effectively as well.
Thank you. Apologies if you can hear the kettle. My partner has perfect timing. So another question we had was, how big a challenge do you find it to demonstrate to clients that the marketing has delivered a tangible, measurable return?
It's obviously always a challenge because, yeah, clients have their own expectations over what marketing can deliver. I think there's two key things there. One, always at the start with any marketing, whether you do this as an agency or in-house for your company, establish what success is first. So agree with the client or with your boss, okay, what is success for this in 6 months time, 12 months time? So that gives you a point of reference always as at the starting point. And I guess in terms of being able to measure, digital marketing helps significantly here in that you have tools like Google Analytics, which will be able to give you traffic, which you can set up goals and events for, so you can see where your customers click, what forms they fill in, what percentage of customers go on to convert. So all of a sudden you have a whole set of metrics to hand, which allow you to demonstrate a number of benefits. And that's where digital has a significant advantage over offline in many respects, because if you have an advert in the paper, it's not always so easy to be able to track and measure how much of that traffic comes to the website versus converting, whereas a digital ad on Google, you can see them from the start to the end and map it all the way through. But there are a number of tools at your fingertips to be able to help with reporting. I think, as always with reporting, it's being honest at the start over what is success and being honest throughout about what you're trying to achieve. So in our instance as an agency, if we come in and the client says, I want to increase sales by 300%, you have to ask them whether that's realistic. If they haven't achieved that in the previous 20 years, how can they expect somebody else to come in and deliver it in 6 months? It's probably unrealistic. So setting goals at the start and what is success is fundamental to then being able to measure against that.
Thank you. Sorry, I was just typing to see if someone wanted to verbally ask a question. So we've got another question, and I don't know if you need more context. So Kate has said, is it okay to post testimonials on LinkedIn?
Yeah, absolutely. Obviously, with any social media channel, first work out what your purpose is for it. But typically, yeah, a testimonial is always going to be a validation, hopefully, of what you're doing well or a level of customer service. So why wouldn't you want to shout about what other people are saying about your business? I think as long as it's part of something else you're doing, if all you're posting is testimonials from other people, it's going to become a bit boring, a bit salesy, a bit not genuine, not authentic, as Brian's already alluded to. So if it's part of everything else, it's perfect. Testimonials are there to back up everything else you say as a business. So if you're saying we're good at this, we're good at that, the testimonial backs it up rather than the testimonial being the thing which says it outright.
Perfect, thank you. And we'll go back, because I don't want to miss Alistair out. The question that we didn't get to earlier, Alistair, was, sounds like it's a toss-up between quality and quantity. Do brands protect their value at the possible detriment of reach and sales numbers?
Yeah, I mean, I think potentially, you know, it will vary greatly, but, you know, it's sometimes quite a subjective issue as to whether or not that sell them high, stack them high, sell them cheap model, which may drive increased volume, albeit at a lower margin, would ultimately still be more profitable. But I mean, you know, I'm not myself a brand expert. Listening to those that have followed that I think are, they would say clearly that, you know, a lot of that investment in the brand is with the anticipation that you'll get a return. So that if you stack them too high and sell them too cheap, in the long run, that's going to be detrimental to your overall profitability. That's obviously a generalization, and I think it must vary. I'm sure it does vary from sector to sector and business to business. But I think you compromise the value in the investment you've made in your brand at your peril. That would be my observation.
I think, Kayleen, just to add to that as well, I think purpose is the important point here. There's a world of difference between a greengrocer that brands themselves to do trade locally on Hall Road and Tesco's. So that reach and the point of your business is very important too. If you want to build a brand that's going to have global domination, that's completely different to a clip art logo that's going to just service you because you want to punt a few leaflets out to the local neighborhood. So I think, as James mentioned, purpose in his last answer, I think that's really, really important to understand what the point of what you're doing is and what type of business you want to build and where, whilst taking all that other advice and guidance on board that Naked outlined with brand as well, of course.
Thank you. So that's it. Apologies, I know we've overrun, but thank you so much for bearing with us. I really hope you found that useful. I know I have. So yeah, it's just to say thank you. I don't know if there's any final words from any of our guest speaker before I end the session.
Available for consultancy at preferential rates.
I'd just like to say thanks as well, Kayleen. Thanks for organising. Thanks for inviting us. It's been a pleasure. So thanks for everyone who turned up. I hope it was interesting.
Perfect. Thank you so much. You've kept me on my toes this morning. So enjoy the rest of your week. We've got our final Bays event tomorrow, which is about overcoming barriers and building self-belief. So again, in the post-event email, I'll include a link. So yeah, thank you so much. Hope you enjoyed it, and hopefully we'll see you all again soon. Bye, everyone.
Thank you. Bye.